Welcome back. Tonight we begin a special investigation into a very troubling issue that for a very long time went largely unnoticed, both here in our region as well as across the country. Now we're talking about a massive backlog of unprocessed rape kits. Now this series is an unfiltered look at what many women go through after they are violated and why in many cases these rape victims never get the justice that they so richly deserve. Now, the crime of rape, it often goes unreported, as you know, because many victims of that violent act, they're either too ashamed, too embarrassed, or simply too frightened to come forward. Now, if a woman is brave enough to come forward to the authorities, the cases are very difficult to prosecute. Law enforcement is often reluctant to bring cases to prosecutors if there is very little likelihood the case could get thrown out. So think about this. Every 2 minutes in the United States, someone is raped, and every year more than 200,000 rape victims, mostly women, report their rapes to police. That's according to Human Rights Watch. Now, most victims who report those rapes consent to what is known as a rape kit, where medical professionals collect physical evidence from the rape victim's body. And as you'll learn here tonight, this is an extremely invasive process that for some can be almost as traumatizing as the rape itself. They swab any areas the perpetrator has touched, and they follow up the exam with heavy doses of medications, including antivirals and antibacterials, to help avoid sexually transmitted diseases. Well, it's a process that can take up to 6 hours. But here's the catch, and it's a pretty big one. What most victims don't realize at the time, or many cases even after the fact, is that in thousands of these cases, that evidence, it sits untested in police storage facilities. The DNA evidence that a hospital collects from a rape victim is essentially useless if a local police department decides not to process the rape kit. Well, tonight and all week long, we will hear from people on the front lines of this rape kits crisis who are trying to work to fix this injustice. And our reporter Kim Lengel, who led this investigation, joins us now with so much more. Kim?
Yeah, Rich, you're right. And the situation you just described is far from rare. According to Human Rights Watch, about 200,000 rape kits are completed every year that are never tested. It means potential rapists roam free, while the evidence that could have put them away sits collecting dust in a police storage room. What's worse, many victims assume that the wheels of justice are turning and that police are out there working to find their attacker. But without processing the rape kits, the wheels of justice grind to a halt. That's what happened to 20-year-old Natasha Alexanko, who was attacked while entering her Manhattan apartment. She was raped at gunpoint nearly 20 years ago. Natasha survived, but her rapist escaped and remained at large for close to a decade. That's while Natasha's unprocessed rape kit sat in the Manhattan County Clerk's office for 9.5 years. The whole time, Natasha believed police were doing their best to track down the man who devastated her life.
I assumed that everything I had done was moving the process along and we were getting closer to finding my perpetrator, including taking that DNA evidence that was in the rape kit to help find my perpetrator. I had no idea that that was not the case.
In 1993, then 20-year-old college student and part-time veterinary hospital worker Natasha Alexanko was sexually assaulted at gunpoint by an unknown attacker in her apartment building in New York City.
As I put my hand on this door here to enter, behind me was a man who pushed the door open further. I felt a gun to my head. He showed me that there was a bullet in the chamber, and he put it to my head and he said, "If you scream, I'm going to kill you." I really made the assumption that since I was seeing his face, he wasn't wearing a mask, that I wasn't going to come out of that alive. There was a gun, there were bullets that I saw on the gun, and this was not going to end well for me.
Natasha says she initially had no idea that her attacker was going to rape her. She says he demanded they go to the rooftop of the building, and on the landing, just before the roof, he forced her to remove her clothes. He rifled through her pants pockets, stole her change and her keys, even her uncashed paycheck.
As I'm standing there naked and afraid and scared, and it didn't hit me what was about to happen, he, at that point, pushed my body. There was like a railing and forced me to bend over on the railing, and I can't tell you whether he took his clothes off too or how it happened, but he proceeded to rape me. It lasted probably about 45 minutes. It was a horrible ordeal. It was being pushed around as I was weeping and crying with a gun constantly pointed to me in one area or another. And he forced me to perform acts on him. And, you know, we think of things like, you know, did you scream? Again, it's all about survival. And for me, I thought, well, okay, maybe if I give him this and what he wants, maybe I will come out of this alive. And I did. I did come out of it alive.
Natasha survived the brutal attack, but soon faced another challenge. Immediately after the attack, Natasha and one of her roommates were rushed to a hospital in an ambulance. Frightened and scared, the two women waited in a chaotic emergency room for what seemed like hours. She says she doesn't remember when, but at some point, she fainted. She woke up hours later in an exam room.
It's not a good feeling. You know, you had just been raped. You feel that everybody knows what's just happened to you. You feel like it's written all over your face.
At that point, Natasha agreed to allow a medical nurse examiner to perform a rape kit.
A rape kit collection is similar to a very invasive gynecological exam, and it's an arduous process. Essentially, my body became a crime scene, and it was the way of collecting forensic evidence at the hospital, DNA, fingerprints, all that sort of evidence in order to eventually catch my perpetrator. So to have gone through that sort of thing in order to help the police with the investigation, only to find that the kid had been sitting for 9.5 years collecting dust in a police locker is extremely frustrating. It turns out it could be all for nothing.
Natasha's rape kit sat on a shelf in the New York City County Clerk's office for 9.5 years. Just before the 10-year statute of limitations was set to expire, that was when New York City prosecutors seeking to clear the backlog of rape kits had the evidence analyzed. In 2007, authorities arrested a suspect who was eventually convicted in Natasha's rape. He is eligible for parole in 2057. Rich.
So you mean that if this kid had been processed just 6 months later, even if they could match it with the guy, the statute of limitations would have let him walk?
Yeah, and Rich, this is happening to women all across the country, and what we're finding out is that it's happening for multiple reasons. A lot of it's related to money, budget cuts that these police.
Because it costs a lot of money to process these kits, right?
It does, about $1,000 per kit. So you can understand if police departments are getting an influx of these kits, it's hard just to keep up with the kits that are coming in, let alone the ones that are in the backlog. But we're also finding out, in addition to money, police have their discretion to send the kit on to testing or not, whether they want to test the kit. If they think it's a slam dunk case, they'll test the kit. If they're not so sure about it, they'll decide not to test the kit. So there's many reasons why this backlog is just adding up and adding up over the years.
Another confusion sometimes is when the kit goes to the lab, it seems like sometimes there's bureaucracy here and red tape that makes it confusing, but the victim too often never even knows. They just assume the wheels of justice are turning when in many cases they're sitting on a shelf. Yeah,
as you heard Natasha say, she thought the whole time that those detectives were out pounding the pavement looking for the guy who raped her, and that was not the case. She had no idea.
Well, I had no idea just how painful a process it is to even submit to a rape kit. I mean, the woman largely is courageous here to even go through it after that, to risk all the things that we mentioned off the top, and then to have that sitting on a shelf. You find people, and we're going to be talking to them this week, that are close to this subject who say it just doesn't have to be this way, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Now, give an idea here, because all week long we're going to be doing this, culminating with our Thursday special. What do we have coming up tomorrow?
Well, tomorrow we have, we're going to talk more about Natasha's case, and we're also going to find out what happens during the rape kit collection process, which is how all that valuable DNA gets tested.
I would probably need 8 paper bags just for your clothing, 2 shirts, underwear, bra, necklace, shoes, stockings. Everything that you're wearing, even if it's not body fluids, it could be something that was in the environment where this happened. There are 2 swabs in every package. The 2 swabs are always used together. There's some knowledge that is required to do these swabs. If there are body fluids in the mouth, the place where they would collect most frequently is between the bottom lip and the teeth. So that's a place where we swab.
We're going to continue all week long with our series. In the meantime, we want you at home to join the conversation. Please go to our new webpage devoted exclusively to the issue. Log on to rnntv.com/rapekits and let your voice be heard. You can tell us your story or sound off on what you think should be done about the Rape Kit Backlog. And our special series will culminate with an in-depth 1-hour investigation, which is Thursday, March 22nd. Rich.
Thank you, Kim. And you yourself, surprised what you found out during this investigation, right?
I was surprised, as the audience will be.
All right. Thank you very much, Kim. We'll be right back, everyone. So please stay with us.